Welcome to the lecture series in computer science. We are seeing a series of lectures in the subject Agile methodologies. We will be seeing a topic on the Agile approach in quality assurance. We will be seeing about the test driven development. We will be seeing about the Agile approach in global software development. So these are the three topics that we are going to witness in this session. As the contents of the session are, we will be seeing about the Agile approach to quality assurance. We will be seeing about the quality assurance process in detail. We will be seeing about the life cycle of a software project. We will be seeing about the test driven development. We will be seeing the do's and don'ts and the typical activities of a tester. And then we will as well see the Agile approaches in the global software development in terms of the distributed teams, and we will conclude the session by seeing the recommendations for a distributed software development. As the first topic of the session, let us see about the Agile approach to quality assurance. Some software development methods mimic traditional industries by employing some kind of pipelined production chain. However, the failure of software projects teaches us that such models do not actually work well with software development. In order to cope with problems that result from such approaches, the notion of a production chain is eliminated in Agile software development environments and is replaced by a more network oriented development process. The task in hand is not divided and allocated to several different teams according to their functionality. For example, the designers, developers and testers, each of which executes its part of the task. All software development activities are intertwined and there is no passing on of responsibility to the next stage in the production chain. Thus, all team members are equally responsible for the software quality. And my dear viewers, that is the reason I said, when you work with Agile software development, when it is a success in the project, it is a team success. It is not the individual success. When it is a failure, it is a team's failure. It is not the individual failure. So anything and everything, and that is the reason you need to have a gelled team, you need to have an interactive team, you need to have a collaborative team, and that is the reason all the team members are equally responsible for the software quality. If it is a software quality, they are equally responsible. If it is a project success, they are responsible. If it is a project failure, the entire team is responsible. Software is an intangible product and therefore it requires a different development process in general and a different approach towards the concept of software quality than do the tangible products. As far as the quality assurance process is concerned, the quality assurance process for the team fits into three broad categories. First is the Agile testing, which starts from iteration 0. Iteration 0 has the envisioning stage to the release. The testing within each iteration. Then you have the pre-production and you have the release testing. My dear viewers, it is a very important interview point of a question as well as the examination point of a question. What is mentioned the process of quality assurance process as far as Agile software development is concerned. The quality assurance process for the team fits into three broad categories. One is Agile testing, second one is testing within each iteration, third one is pre-production and or the release training. Now let us see the life cycle of a software project. As far as the life cycle of the software project is concerned, it starts with iteration 0. In iteration 0, when you learnt about this Scrum framework or extreme programming, you would have seen a Scrum board, a story card. So anything and everything is being mentioned as stories. So in iteration 0, the story test analysis plays a role for iteration 1. Test automation has been done, strategy has been developed, framework has been set up, and so on. As far as the iteration 1 is concerned, you have the IPM project management, and then you have this iteration 1 for storytelling, which is either of manual or automation. The story test analysis for iteration 2, then you have in iteration 2, you showcase the iteration 1 and the interactive project management. You have a complete iteration 1 and the story is being tested. My dear viewers, kindly make a note, the story is being tested, story testing. Complete iteration 1, automation. Iteration 2, you have the story testing either in terms of manual or automation. Test automation, maintenance, execution. Story test analysis for iteration 3. Then in iteration 3, you have a showcase of iteration 2 and you have a complete iteration 2 story testing. You have complete iteration 2 automation, iteration 3 story testing, manual or automation, test automation, maintenance, execution, and you have the story test analysis for iteration 4. Similarly, it goes on and on till the iteration n. In iteration n, you have the showcase of the previous iteration n-1, and then you have a complete iteration n-1 story testing, complete iteration n-1 automation, iteration n-1 story testing, manual and automation, test automation, maintenance, execution, story test analysis for iteration n+1. So this is the life cycle of a software project. Now let us see how testing has been carried out in each and every iteration. In the story planning session, you write or refine the acceptance criteria. Then you go ahead with the interactive project management, wherein you have a quality assurance kickoff, and then based on the quality assurance kickoff, you have a story kickoff. Each and every story has to be activated in order to perform. So you have a story kickoff. Then based on the story kickoff, you have the test. You are supposed to write the test scenarios. If you want to test a particular scenario, you need to write certain cases, test cases. So test scenario writing. Then you have to implement the automated acceptance test. I said in my previous slide, it can be either manual or automated. So implementing the automated acceptance test. Then you have the business analyst or the quality assurance team will be doing the testing, and it is called as the BA/QA volleyball, because when you work with the Scrum framework, the QA team, when they are going to test it, the BA team, business analyst team, when they are going to test it, it is called as a volleyball, BA/QA volleyball. Then you have the story testing, manual and the exploratory testing. The story testing is a combination of manual testing as well the exploratory testing. Then you have the automation, execution and maintenance, and you have to showcase it. Based on the showcasing, if there is any query, if there is any refinement, any rectification, then again it goes on, the cycle continues, and again the story will be planned. There will be a story planning session. You need to write, you need to refine. Refinement will be done based on the previous showcase. If you are going to start afresh, you will be writing the story planning session. If you are going to showcase from the previous session, then you are going to refine the acceptance criteria. So this is how the testing has been carried out within each iteration. So this is where the iteration is, and this is how the testing has been carried out in the iteration. Let us move on to the next topic, test driven development. Test driven development is one of the main framework related to agile development, which works on repetitive and short development cycles. A developer writes an initial failing automated test case for a new feature and quickly adds a test with the minimum amount of code to pass the test. When you start afresh, it is not that you will always be successful at the first instance itself. The more and more you have failures, the more and more you get trained, the more and more practice that you make, the more and more experience that you fetch, the more and more successful your project will be. So, all days are not Sundays. So, always there will not be a successful model. So, when he is going to create a test case, it might be a failing test. So, he need to buckle up and see to that he has a minimum amount of code to pass the test. Then refactoring is done. My dear viewers, what is refactoring? We have seen refactoring in few of our earlier sessions. Refactoring denotes the code quality is improved without adding the functionality or without changing the functionality. Your software may be working fine, but at the back end process internally you will be changing the code for better efficiency, better performance, but at the front end screen there will not be any change in the software working. The software working will be same, but at the back end you try to revamp, you try to remodify the code in such a way that the efficiency of the software will be faster, the performance will be faster. So, that is called as refactoring the new code to acceptable standards. So, now let us see some of the do's that are to be carried out when you are going to work with the agile testing. The test automation has to be encouraged. Always there should not be manual testing. You need to have an automation too. Domain knowledge is crucial, it is highly important for the quality assurance members. But it is not the case with respect to traditional software development. Here when your people are going to work with agile software development, he needs to know or he needs to have a domain knowledge. Certain degree of technical competency is essential for the quality assurance members. Testing as early as practical and continuously. There should be a continuous frequent testing and there should be a continuous testing. There should be a rigorous testing so that the bugs will not happen again and again. So that if at all if the bugs happen, you can fix it then and there, and that is the reason you are supposed to have a continuous testing. Develop acceptance test cases before the software is designed. Developers have the responsibility to create automated unit tests. You are supposed to make the testing and feedback as a continuous activity in a sprint rather than making it as a phase towards the end. My dear viewers, this is an important point as far as agile software development is concerned. In a traditional software development, and that too with respect to an approach called the waterfall model or the linear software development, linear sequential model, wherein you have different phases as the analysis phase, design phase, coding phase, testing phase, and then comes the maintenance. So, the testing comes as the fourth phase, whereas in this agile software development, the testing is a continuous activity in a sprint. Why do you say sprint? This has been compared with the Scrum framework. So, in a sprint rather than making it as a phase towards the end. Testers must be in continuous conversation with coders. That is where you have a gelled team. You need to collaborate with the coders. When you could take up a technique in extreme programming, you have a technique called pair programming, wherein two people will sit together and will work on a single logic of code. In one particular logic of code, two people will be working simultaneously. One will be a tester, the other will be a developer. So, that is the reason you need to have a continuous conversation with the coders. Continuous build and integration practices will aid in testing. So, these are some of the do's in agile testing. Now, let us see some of the don'ts in agile testing. You are not supposed to expect a sign off or on the baseline requirements. Do not create an elaborate test plan. Create only specified, only whatever is required. Do not create an elaborate test plan, because there might be a change in requirements, and whatever you have created in the earlier phase, it may not be valid. So create whatever has been required. Then do not expect separate daily stand-ups and separate planning sessions and estimation process among the development and among the quality assurance team members or the teams. Do not follow the manual testing throughout the project. You have manual testing at one instance, you do automated testing at the other instance. So do not follow the manual testing always entirely as far as agile project development is concerned. Do not disconnect from the customers and the development team. What does it denote? You are supposed to be connected with the customer. You are supposed to have a gelled team with the development team, and the development team and the customer or the customer representative has to be connected. Do not participate only towards the end of the sprint. The customer representative or whoever the stakeholder is, they are supposed to participate throughout the project. They are not supposed to participate at the end of the sprint. Do not ignore the system testing, since unit testing exists over there. So these are some of the don'ts in the agile testing. Now let us see the typical activities of an agile tester. The tester should raise queries on the testing needs for the requirements and should aptly identify the missing bug. He should understand the acceptance criteria of a story and perform testing based on the acceptance criteria. He should try negative testing within the limits of the story, and not always, within the limits of the story. And then in the cases of failing scenarios, as I said, always there will not be success. In the case of failing scenarios, the tester should raise a defect on the card, on the testing card. Tester should notify the status and defects that have been identified so far. Tester should automate whatever defect has been fixed if it is not covered in any of the stories, any of the previous stories that was allotted. Tester, after interacting with the business analyst, should perform exploratory testing to look into some of the missing functionality that has not been covered in the story. So these are some of the activities of an agile tester. Now let us see the agile approach in the global software development. Global software development is employed when software companies set distributed teams to work together on product development. The motivation for global development usually stems from the need to use the organizational resources cost competitively and the need to shorten time to market by around the clock development. The advantages in the global software development is that as the business aspect of cost reduction. Disadvantages: communication and team synchronization. What do you mean by business aspect of cost reduction? Supposing if it is of a product, if it is of a software project, you are going to develop for a developed country, for say for example for US or UK, the dollar value when compared to the Indian rupee is pretty high. So what happens is that as you will be getting the resources at a very low price. The Indian resources, the Indian people, for them the money may be huge, but when compared to the US people, the developed country, the money that they spend to the Indian resource is pretty small. So as far as the business aspect is concerned, it deals with the cost reduction. That is the advantage of a global software development. The disadvantage is communication. As I said in my earlier lectures, even supposing the client is said to be an Ethiopian client, an African client, a Nigerian client, or a Chinese client, or a person who is not comfortable in communicating in English, then communication is a major barrier. And supposing if your team has been diversified across the globe, supposing if you have a team in Nigeria, Africa, then there might be cultural differences, there might be racial differences, there might be time differences. If you have a team in US, if one team is working in Melbourne, if the other team is working in California, if the third team is working in Chennai, India, then there might be a time difference. So they may not be synchronizing, the team may not synchronize, all the teams may not synchronize at all times. It may synchronize sometime, but not at all times. So the team synchronization is one of the disadvantage in the global software development. Then communication in the distributed agile teams, interaction among individuals who are part of the software development environment are emphasized by the Agile manifesto. The application of a role scheme in software teams enhances communication and interactions among teammates because of the teammates' accountability to cross project activities. Distributed teams cannot meet face to face. That is a major drawback because, as I said, one team is put up in California, other team is put up in Melbourne, third team is put up in Chennai, India. We cannot have a face to face discussion, but we can have a video conferencing. But you get more gelled when you are meeting face to face. Interaction between teammates is crucial. As I said, it is because of the time differences. If you are going to have one other team in Ethiopia or Nigeria, Africa, you have the cultural differences. So it is crucial for the success of the distributed team. Since the Agile approach emphasizes the need for smooth and fruitful communication in distributed teams, communication issues should be constantly addressed by deciding, for example, on communication facilitators, communication channels, and certain communication measures has to be taken care of. As I said a few minutes back, supposing the client, if he does not know English, if he is not comfortable in speaking English, and if he is comfortable in speaking a language called Swahili, and as an Indian, if you do not know Swahili language, if you know only English, you need to have a channel. You need to do certain communication measures and see to that whatever he speaks has been translated to the local regional language in India, and whatever language that you speak is being translated to him, so that you maintain frequency with the customer. So that measures has to be taken. Then planning in distributed agile projects. Planning is one of the vital activities in agile software development. It is performed in an iterative manner, small releases of a few months each and short iterations of 2 to 4 weeks each. Teams should be synchronized in order to develop a high quality product. In distributed teams, the planning activity also serves coordination and synchronization purposes. Different techniques and tools are suggested for the planning of software projects in distributed environments. Reflective processes and agile reflective processes and organizational culture in agile distributed teams. Reflection. What is reflection? Reflection is also one of the most important tools to control and improve performances in distributed environments. It provides teammates with a way to talk about problems and discuss their main concerns, highlights information about the process, and enables improvements to reduce some of the disappointment that developers in distributed environments feel. The culture of a specific group is influenced by the culture of the nation as well. The organizational culture syncs with the culture of the specific group, so that you have an influence with the culture of the nation as well as the organizational culture. Both are relevant for global environments. Let us see 4 basic organizational cultures. My dear viewers, it is an important question as far as an examination point, as far as for the interview purpose. The 4 basic organizational cultures are: first culture speaks about the cultivation culture. The cultivation culture is motivated by self-realization. The competence culture. The competence culture is driven by the need for achievement. Collaboration culture. Collaboration culture are driven by the need for affiliation. And control culture. Control culture are motivated by the need for power and security. While the agile approach fits the competence and the collaboration culture, the rigorous methodologies fits the control culture. Now let us see some of the recommendations in the distributed team. A common person who is experienced in working with agile software development projects has to be nominated who can fly between the sites. This person should be able to assign tasks and monitor them from different locations. Nominated person should take care of issues such as cultural differences, time differences due to the team spread across the geographical locations, communication slang, and should trust employees working across the globe on a specific software project. It is the responsibility of the quality assurance team to sync with the developers and to check the code in the code repository. Quality assurance team should inform the developers at the other site about the code that is checked in the code repository. Any vital discussion or training pertaining to a project has to be carried out at a common site. At all the locations of the project, many visual screens, the LCDs and the LED displays, the television displays, liquid crystal display or the light emitting LED displays have to be placed to communicate and collaborate with video conferencing apart from interacting through chat engines and electronic mails or the emails. Feedback from the remote customer can be obtained through electronic mails and chat engines. Electronic mails will act as a proof in lieu of the showing demos at the customer end. Now let us summarize this session. We saw about the agile approach to quality assurance, the quality assurance process, the life cycle of a software project, the test driven development, the do's, don'ts and the typical activities of a tester, agile approach in the global software development, and we saw about the recommendations for a distributed software development team. Thank you.